This week's ghost story comes from Ruthin County Jail, built in 1775 on the site of a much earlier jail which had replaced the cells underneath the old courthouse when they could no longer contain the growing number of prisoners in Denbighshire. When full, Ruthin Jail held more than 100 men, women and children. Today it's a museum, but it seems that some of the old inmates are still here.
Well, I wouldn't want to spend the night there.
Oh, no.
There are very dark energies there, which you would find in any jail, whether it's still in use in jail or not.
Yeah.
There's every type of entity. There's 9 different types of entity.
9?
In that building, yes.
Right, and none of them good, I'm guessing.
Well, no, probably most of them are quite dark ones. There might just be some earthbound souls there as well, but there's a lot of dark.
So, what was life like for a prisoner at Ruthin Jail? Well, the first thing that happened was that you had your photograph taken. And for this you sat on a special chair, cleverly designed to be uncomfortable. They wanted the punishment to start straight away. And you didn't have to be a major threat to society to end up doing 6 months with hard labour. A lot of the men and women and children in here had only stolen food or clothes, or a shovel one bloke had taken, possibly so that he could find work as a labourer. Which is ironic, because if you didn't have a job, you could be locked up for that as well.
It would have looked very much like this, very airy, windows, all exactly the same. The staircase here is original. But behind that was a very, very strict Victorian penal system. So it really belies the cruelty, if you like, that happened behind these doors around us.
Were they in the cells all day long, or were they?
About an hour.
23 hours a day?
23 hours a day. They came out and they then, the classic thing is walking in a circle, wearing this mask, really, Scotch cap.
Why did they do that?
To obscure their features, so that they couldn't even have a nodding acquaintance with their fellow prisoners. So they deprived them of everything. They deprived them of speaking to them. They deprived them really of even knowing who was in the next cell or round and about.
The authorities were obsessed with isolation. For the first 6 months of their sentence, prisoners were not allowed to receive visitors or letters. And then they were allowed either a visitor or a letter, but not both. It was also thought that bad characters could be reformed by being put to work, for which they'd be paid. One of the jobs was unpicking old ropes, so that the fibres could be reused, which is where money for old rope comes from. But some tasks served no useful purpose at all. They were meant to break a man's spirit.
They turned a crank. There were cups inside the machine that went through sand. The cups went round, emptied the sand, went round again. And there was a figure clocked up as to how many revolutions that you did. And should you have, by some means or other, managed to loosen the crank so that it was slightly easier for you, one of the prison warders would come up with a spanner and tighten it up. Hence, the screws coming make your life a bit harder because you've loosened it up and the screw would come to tighten it up again.
Many people have died at Ruthin Jail of disease or old age, but only one person was ever executed here. William Hughes, who was hanged in 1903 for murdering his wife. He discharged both barrels of a shotgun at point-blank range into her head. And so he spent the last night of his life here, in the condemned cell. And the next morning, 8 o'clock sharp, the door in the wall there was opened and he was taken through to the gallows. He was, by all accounts, in a very good mood. He was cheerful, he was relaxed. He greeted the witnesses to the execution and he shook hands with the executioner. And the very last act in his life was to take his boots off. Because, as he put it, I came into the world without boots. I want to leave the world without boots. And so he did. And his body was buried in the grounds of the jail. And I can't help but think that when something as highly charged and traumatic as that has happened in a place, surely it must leave some sort of an imprint or impression on that place.
I think one of the most delightful things that I've picked up, we were here on a vigil one evening and I picked up a little girl. The little girl, she gave me a name as Josie, I seen her as being about 8 or 9 years old. I could see ringlet hair with a bow in the back. Josie actually skips through the corridors here, and she's a happy little soul. I was very confused, and I went to the jail staff that were on that evening. They proceeded to take the census records, and in the 1871 census there was a child, Josephine, aged 9 years, and she was the governor's daughter. So she wasn't a child of poverty, and she would have been a happy little girl here, very probably.
And I have to ask you, as I'm going to be spending the night here on my own, do you think there's anything here to be afraid of?
There is actually a man here that I've picked up on a couple of occasions, and he is a very mischievous little man. We have a wonderful picture of the spirit man. We do.
And where did you take that?
It was actually just out here in the yard.
Where we?
It is,
Seriously?
yes. One evening in February.
Being a bit new to this ghost hunting lark, I thought it would be a good idea to join the professionals for a bit and see how it's done.
And illuminate us in their whitest...
And standard procedure is to start with a prayer.
I asked them to illuminate the
To protect you from the bogeymen, obviously.
For it to flow over our heads, down through our bodies to the outside of the circle. We ask only for spirits from the light to join us as we do our work this evening. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
It's all very high-tech, isn't it? That detects electromagnetic radiation. Those are movement sensors. But my favourite bit of kit was the good old-fashioned dowsing rods.
And ask the rods to either move in or out, and you just concentrate. Don't stab anybody, be careful with them.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
No, watch people.
I haven't done this before.
Buttons on the side.
Oh, yeah. So as you can see, I'm getting something here. And I also knit my own jumpers. Right, shall we go?
So, off we go to perform a séance in one of the most haunted parts of the jail. And you're about to see that silly smile wiped right off my face.
If there's any spirits in this room with us this evening, can you please make yourself known by a way of a tap, a knock, change the temperature, touch one of us. Thank you.
Do you want me to ask a question?
Yes, ask the question if there's anybody there or
Okay.
something you feel comfortable in.
Right.
No, if you'd like to call
Just
out
call
loud
out.
and ask if there's any spirit energies present with us.
Yes, okay. Are there any spirit energies present? If there are, please move the rods.
Thank you and bless you for that.
That's very impressive. Because I'm not doing anything.
As the séance progressed, I discovered, very disturbingly, that I seemed to be in contact with the spirit of a dead child.
If you've got a child in this room, please move the rods out. Problems.
Are they moving?
We thank you. We thank you, young person.
Bless you, darling.
And actually, the right one is moving the same way.
Again.
And it's just touched you again.
Right,
They're both-
okay.
Okay, they're both touching me.
John, if I can ask you, just to keep your senses open. As I've said, anybody can do this sort of thing. You don't have to be a wonderful medium. But keep your mind open to any thoughts that come into your mind. It's, if you can imagine, if you think to yourself, oh, I've got to go put petrol in the car, you hear those thoughts in your head. When spirit comes through like that, it's very similar. Right, sweetheart, do you think you can tell John your name?
Well, the name is Sarah.
Sarah. Thank you, sweetheart, bless you.
What was that?
It was a click, I heard that.
Did anybody move in the room?
It was just behind me, just behind my leg. My right leg there.
Well, there's no one behind you.
I'm starting to go goosebumps. Do you feel any different, John? Are you going goosebumps or anything?
Oh, yes. I've been doing that for quite a while now.
Why didn't you speak up and tell us? Sarah, if you can tell John, can you tell him what year it was when you were here, sweetheart?
Okay, I have 1752. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Sarah, were you an inmate here, sweetheart?
Yes.
She was.
This
oh,
is very
bless you.
strange, this is.
We have some fantastic results with people that have never done this sort of thing before.
Right, well, I think I'd like to stop there, but of course I will be back later on tonight on my own. Oh, I should continue then.
What was really bothering me now, apart from the obvious, was that if you're asked to think of a name or a date, then you will. Doesn't necessarily mean you're in contact with a spirit. So, I decided that later on, I'd have another go with the dowsing rods and ask the same questions in a slightly different way.
So this is the bit where I wander around on my own, using the infrared camera. You see, I'm heading right up as high as I can get in the prison here. And of course, it's a perfect opportunity for a spiteful, mischievous entity to push me off. Well, that was very, very peculiar. I'm back down in the basement. I was right up the highest place you can get in the prison, and the battery packed in on the camera. So I had to call up Trevor, our cameraman, who had to come back from the hotel, and he couldn't understand it. He charged the battery up himself. It was fully charged, and it ran for 6 minutes, and that was that. Knocked out. Yes, it's been a very interesting day here. I'm going to go back now, as I'm down here, back into the warder's office. Because I don't know how long this battery's going to last. Ooh. Oh, and the moment I came in here, goose pimples all over my body.
I'd never picked up a pair of dowsing rods before tonight, and I wanted another go. And I should explain that I'd asked whatever was listening to move the rods together in a straight line for a yes, and apart in a straight line for a no.
Yeah, you see the rods? Wow. God. Let me just do that again. That's so extraordinary. Do you want to talk to me? Well, I think that's a yes. What was that? Sorry, that's not a question for you. Okay, phrasing the questions. When you were alive, were you called Sarah? Did you die in 1752? That's a yes. Did you die here? Oh man, this is really... That's another yes. Do you want me to help you? That's a yes. And look at them, the rods are returning back. They're going back to the neutral position. And I'm not doing anything. Do you want me to ask Debbie Rye to help you? Debbie Rye is a medium, she's a dowser, she might be able to help you. Would you like me to ask her to help you? It's a yes. I'm gonna stop. I'm not making it up. It's very strange.
There's 9 different types there, so there's all different types of souls and entities, you know, all different types of dark ones, so an awful lot there. And obviously when I clear it, I rescue them, I can actually find out how many souls there are there, and also ask specifically about Sarah and make sure she goes to the light. So I'm working with a chart now, and I just ask my higher self to now clear all discarnates in the aura, discarnates in possession, discarnates in past lives, separates, from Ruthin Gaol, from every part of the building, and to clear them now and send them to the light. My pendulum swings as the clearing is going on, and then when they're cleared, my pendulum will come to a stop. Just going to clear all negative thought forms now. Okay, there's now satanics and demonic entities to be cleared. So I ask higher self to clear all satanics and demonics from Ruthin Gaol. Next is the dark forces. Okay, higher self, please clear all dark forces now from Ruthin Gaol. I just ask for higher self to bring in extra help if necessary to get all these demonic forces out, please. Get them all cleared now from Ruthin Gaol. So I invoke Saint Germain to take the violet flame to Ruthin Gaol and transmute all negativity from the walls, the floors, the ceilings. Over 2,000 dark entities, I should say something like 2,400 in total have been cleared, so that's an awful lot of entities, obviously, for one property. Yeah, there appear to be approximately about 20 children's spirits that have now gone to the light. And I will ask about Sarah. Has Sarah's spirit gone to the light? Yes, it has, so there's no more souls there now.
Yeah. Well, that was a strange one. Yeah. I mean, all right, you probably think I was making up all that stuff with the rods and all that, but all I can say is I wasn't. It was as you saw. It happened. I'm actually slightly embarrassed because I did get a bit kind of upset in there with the little girl and all that, and there we are. That's how it was. Have you seen the film? Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. There's a scene right at the end where Vinnie Jones, the hard man, is saying goodbye to everyone, and he stops, and he turns around and he says, "It's been emotional." And it has, really, for me anyway. Aye, so there you go. I'm gonna have a cup of tea now.